So the blood clotting system involves the proteolytic activation of a series of proenzymes with an activated enzyme or clotting factor, often a serine protease, activating the next proenzyme in the cascade. Complete the cascade diagram by identifying the extrinsic, and intrinsic pathways, and by placing the correct proenzyme, enzyme, or cofactor in each target. One clotting factor will be used more than once. All other terms will be used once. That actually is quite helpful that they let you know that one of them gets used twice. Okay. So first off, we have the intrinsic and extrinsic pathways, right? And so what does intrinsic and extrinsic mean? Okay. That was no answers. That probably won't be helpful for you guys then. Okay. So, first thing we have to do, right, is identify which is which. The damaged tissue surface is the intrinsic pathway. And one of the ways you can sort of help yourself remember that is insert something, right? So damaged tissue surface means that you have to damage the surface, meaning something is being inserted into you, right? Like a knife stab, okay? This, on the other hand, is the extrinsic pathway, and that is going to be induced by some form of trauma, but that doesn't necessarily damage the surface, right? And so a bruise expresses itself, right? Okay. Hopefully that kind of helps. Okay. All right. So now we get to have the fun time of going down these stupid freaking factor numberings. Frankly speaking, there is pretty much no real way of just reasoning this out, okay? This is one of those times you're just going to have to mostly memorize the damn thing. It mostly works itself upwards in numbers as you go down, for the most part. If you look here, if you're given part of it, you have the factor, and then it goes to the active form. See that? A for active, right? And then it goes on to the next part, because that's going to be a cascade, right? What does a cascade mean? One thing causes more things, cause more things, cause more things, right? It gets worse and worse. Okay. In this case, better and better, I guess, but it can be worse and worse. This can go out of control, of course. Why do you guys know why this is a cascade, right? So each of these is activating enzymes, right? Which will activate more and more and more. So let's say this does 10. We get 10 of these. The next step would be 100, right? Next step's 1,000. Next step's 10,000. It gets huge, right? Because we have this cascade effect. And so you can have a relatively minor release of these first elements, which will become just massive responses, right? Very quickly. Okay. So this first one is factor 7, okay? And, 12, I'm sorry. I'm reversed. I'm flipped around. 12, and it goes downwards in number, okay? Because the 12 is the top of the intrinsic pathway, and then we go downwards in number overall. But keep in mind, there's some things that get reused, okay? Okay, so we have 12, it goes to the active form. It's going to activate the next one, 11, which activates the next one, which is actually 9. I told you, you just got to sort of memorize the damn things, right? Okay. This is going to work to activate 8. Okay. So now we have 9 and 8 are working together, and they're going to activate 10. I know, right? How wonderful. Okay, so it's going to work to activate 10, okay? So now we have 10 activated. Thank goodness this finally goes into the common pathway, right? How do you remember it's the common pathway? It's the stuff that's in common, right? Everything's joined together. Extrinsic and intrinsic pathways are joined. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do this extrinsic pathway now. All right. So we experience a trauma, but interestingly enough, the trauma can actually cause 2 slightly different activations. Okay, we can get 2 different things. So we get tissue factor from the trauma and see this dead ends, okay? Okay. But we also get a trauma activating 7. Okay? So we get 7 activated. 7 will activate 10. Okay? Okay. I know, right? Isn't that wonderful? One of the ways you can help yourself remember this is 9, 8, and 7 all are going to end up working eventually on 10, right? Okay, so the whole shebang previous to that sort of works on 10. Okay, hopefully that kind of helps. You always get activated 10 though. That's where the common pathway becomes common, okay? Okay. So also tissue factor here is kind of an interesting one because it has a very nice name, right? You get trauma to your tissue and you get tissue factor, okay? It's one of the few things that actually makes any damn sense in this. Their naming actually was reasonable. And thrombin, of course. I mean, that's fine. Okay, so the active form of 10 is going to work on prothrombin to make thrombin. That's not hard, is it? You can also help yourself remember that 10T. Okay? Thrombin, T, 10. Okay? Fibrogen is then going to work to make the fibrils, right? And that's going to be fibrogen. Gen is in Genesis, right? Going to fibrin. Okay? This is actually the one that's easiest because, notice by the way that this is 8A again. Or 13A. So we violate the damn numbering again. Right? Isn't that wonderful? So 13 active form of 13 works with fibrin to make cross-linked fibrin clot, which actually is very easy to remember that it's next to fibrin, right? That's going to be a result of fibrin, okay? And this is going to make the little fibers that help you clot the wound, okay? One of the things you can help yourself with remembering this is that as we go down here, these are going to have a bigger and bigger effect, okay? So the stuff that doesn't have immediate effects is typically up on the top. The stuff that has big, pronounced effects, and the stuff that we would typically want to use as medicines, and you'd see the most as medicines, is typically closer to the bottom, okay? This is the stuff that actually does things, actually closes wounds, right? We make the fibers, we start filling it in with tissues, you know. So typically those are down here because we need a lot of them to work, right? Did that help at all? Kind of. Okay, we'll actually go over that in lecture too. In the problem-based learning, there's part of that where I'll go over that. But I'll be honest, it is mostly just a memorization thing. Okay? So you may want to do flip cards. The activation part's not hard, right? But you may want to do some flip cards like 7 leads to this, 10 leads to that, sort of thing. Okay? Okay, does anybody have any questions? You all have a great day. Have fun at your whatever things.